My name is Nora Hastings. I'm 31 years old, and for the past 14 months, I've been trying to convince myself that what happened with the doll was just a series of coincidences, a slow unraveling of grief and guilt after the loss of my sister Claire, who died under circumstances no one in my family has ever been willing to discuss. But last night when I came home from work and found the box, I'd buried 6 feet underground 3 towns away, sitting on my kitchen table opened. Empty and surrounded by muddy footprints the size of a child's, I knew I hadn't imagined any of it. The doll was back. The same one Claire had carried with her everywhere since we were little, the same one she started talking to again during the final year of her life when she stopped trusting anyone but it. I'm not talking about your average childhood toy. This thing was wrong. Its eyes were too lifelike, too knowing, and there were nights growing up when I swore I saw it watching us from a slightly different position than where we left it after Claire died. I took the doll out to a remote field in Oster County and buried it myself with a rusted shovel and trembling hands, whispering apologies I didn't even understand. And now it's back. This story isn't for the faint-hearted, and I'm not here to prove anything. I just need someone to hear it, because whatever was in that doll, whatever followed me back home, it hasn't come alone. Things are moving in my apartment when I'm not there. My cat won't go near the closet. I'm waking up with bruises I don't remember getting, and I think the doll is trying to finish what Claire started. If you're watching this, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share this story with someone who still believes certain objects should never be unearthed. This is part 1 of my story, and I'll keep telling it until someone believes me, or until the thing pretending to be my sister finally gets in. He didn't sleep that night after seeing the box, didn't even try. I sat on the couch with every light in the apartment turned on, clutching a kitchen knife like it could protect me from something that didn't bleed, didn't breathe, and might not even exist in a way I can explain. Every creak of the floor, every groan of the pipes set me spinning, and I kept replaying the same question over and over. How could something I buried be here now? I tried calling the one person who might believe me, my Aunt May, Claire's godmother, but the call went straight to voicemail, and when I texted her, I noticed something that chilled me more than the muddy footprints. Her contact photo had changed to a grainy black and white picture. I didn't recognize one that looked like it had been scanned from an old newspaper, and in it she was holding the doll. My doll, or I thought it was mine, until I noticed something in the photo that made my skin crawl. The little girl standing next to her wasn't me. It looked like Claire, only younger than I ever remembered her being, and her eyes were scratched out like someone had dragged a thumbnail across the image 1,000 times. I dropped the phone and ran to the box on the kitchen table, desperate to convince myself that maybe somehow this was a prank. Maybe someone dug up the doll. Maybe someone was trying to scare me. Maybe grief was finally cracking my mind open. But when I touched the box, it was still wet, still soft with fresh dirt, and something sharp was lodged in the corner, a human tooth, small, yellowed, with a crack down the middle, like someone had bit down on something they weren't supposed to. I screamed, stumbled backward, and that's when I saw it. The closet door in the hallway was open, just an inch, just enough for something to be watching. And the closet light, which I never leave on, was flickering like a bad bulb. I should have run, but something about the air held me still. It was heavy, like the oxygen had thickened, like the apartment wasn't just watching me, but holding me there, waiting. I crept toward the closet, knife still in hand, and with every step the light blinked faster, until just as I reached the handle it went out completely, and in the darkness I heard it. The slow dragging pull of cloth on wood, like something small was crawling out, and then a whisper, clear and close. You weren't supposed to touch her box. I turned the light back on and flung the door open, and nothing was there. Just coach shoes, dust, but the smell hit me next. Burnt hair and rotting earth. The same smell from the day of Claire's funeral, the same smell from the field where I buried the doll, and when I looked down, all the shoes were gone. In their place was a tiny wooden chair, perfectly centered, and on it sat the doll. Her head was tilted, her dress was torn, and her right eye, once glass, was now something else entirely. A photograph of my sister's face pressed into the socket like someone had glued it there. And when I picked up the doll with shaking hands, its jaw creaked open, and a recorded voice, Claire's voice, spoke. Mama says you lied. She says it's your turn now. I dropped the doll so fast it bounced off the wooden floor and rolled onto its side, the voice still crackling through its tiny speaker, repeating the words like a mantra. It's your turn now. It's your turn now. It's your turn now. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, and somewhere deep inside me something cold and ancient uncurled. A memory I'd buried even deeper than the doll. Something about Claire, about our last real argument before she died, about a night I've never told anyone about, but I shoved it back down, too afraid to face it, and instead grabbed the doll by the leg, wrapped it in an old bed sheet, and stuffed it into the oven. I turned the heat to 500 degrees, cranked the timer, and stood there, listening as the metal slowly expanded with heat, and then I waited 10 minutes past 15 at 20 minutes. I opened the door expecting ashes or melted cloth or at the very least smoke, but the sheet was untouched. The doll was still inside, its head now turned toward the oven door like it had been watching me through the glass the entire time, and its mouth moved again. "That's not how you do it," I screamed and slammed the oven shut, locking it, but the sound didn't stop. The voice kept bleeding out of the sealed chamber like it wasn't bound by physics anymore, and I ran to my neighbor's apartment in a full panic. Angela, sweet, quiet Angela, who'd lived next to me for 3 years, opened her door, saw my face, and before I could say a word, she asked, "Is it back?" My blood froze. I hadn't told her, no one, not even my therapist, not the police, when Claire died. But Angela didn't just know, she invited me in like she'd been expecting this, poured tea with trembling hands, and said, "It showed up here once too, but it liked you better. It always did." She told me a story about when she was a little girl growing up in foster care in upstate New York, about a house that caught fire, a doll that survived the flames without a single mark, a girl who stopped speaking and clawed out her own eyes. "Some people think it's cursed," Angela whispered. "But I think it's older than that. I think it finds people who are guilty." That word hit me like a slap, guilty, and suddenly the memory I'd been burying clawed to the surface. The night Claire fell down the stairs, how I didn't call for help right away. How I froze terrified she'd tell Mom about what I'd done, about the thing I'd said to her, about the dare I made her do. Shook my head, told Angela she was wrong, that this wasn't my fault, but she only looked at me with those hollow eyes and said, "You fed it, you kept it alive." When I went back to my apartment, the oven was cold, the sheet was gone, and the doll was sitting on my bed holding a note in Claire's handwriting. "Let's play like we used to." I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me, and this time it locked. I stood frozen in the dim bedroom, the only light coming from the hallway under the door, a sickly yellow that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, and in that moment, I understood something I'd tried to deny for too long. This wasn't just about the doll, it was about what I had buried inside myself the day Claire died, about a guilt so raw and festering that it had finally found a vessel to climb back through. The doll wasn't just haunted, it was an invitation, a mirror, a punishment. And now it had locked me inside the room where I used to watch Claire cry herself to sleep, when our mother screamed downstairs, when I would hide and pretend not to hear, when I told her once, just once, that maybe the doll was safer to talk to than people, because people couldn't be trusted. I had said those words, and now they had come back for me. The doll sat perfectly still in the bed, its tiny cloth hands wrapped around the note, like it had written it, like it had been waiting all this time for me to finally look, and when I did, I saw there was more to the message on the back, written in faint pencil marks. It read, "Hide and seek starts now, you're it." The lights went out, all of them, not just in the bedroom, the entire apartment went black, and something scurried across the floor behind me, fast, low, and human. I spun and fell, hands slapping cold hardwood, and when I crawled to the door and yanked at the knob, it was gone, not just locked, but gone, smooth wall in its place like it had never existed. I screamed, clawed at the surface, but no sound came out of my mouth, like the air itself had turned thick and refused to carry my voice, and when I turned back around, the bed was gone too. No bed, no lamp, just darkness. And a faint giggle like a child playing behind a curtain. I stumbled forward, arms out, and brushed against something soft fabric, and then something colder skin, and then the doll was in my hands again. Its body warm now, pulsing, almost breathing. And its head snapped up to meet my gaze as it whispered, "She told me what you did. She said it's time we switch places." And suddenly I wasn't in my room anymore. I was in the old basement at our childhood home, the one our parents boarded up after the accident, the one Claire swore she dreamed about every night until the day she died. The doll dropped from my hands and landed with a wet thud, and I realized the floor was soaked, not with water, but with blood, old, congealed, and still. Spreading from the shadows where something moved with slow, dragging steps. A shape began to form, tall and slender, like a woman made from smoke and grief, and it held something in its arms, a bundle, and as it came closer, I saw it was Claire, her face peaceful, her body broken the same way it had looked in the casket. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, begging, not even sure for what, forgiveness, understanding? But the figure bent low, placed Claire at my feet, and whispered in my own voice, "If you won't remember, I'll help you relive it." And then the basement door slammed shut behind us, and I heard the lock click again, but this time from inside. My own head, the basement air was dense and metallic as if I were breathing rust. And the silence had weight pressed against my chest, crawling into my lungs like something alive, and in that suffocating stillness I could hear it again. The voice, but this time not coming from the doll. It was Claire's voice, but younger, more fragile, from a time before secrets and tragedy, before the whispers began, and before our lives were carved open by something neither of us could name. It echoed through the room as if trapped in the walls, not words exactly, but sobs, little hiccuping gasps like she used to make when she cried herself to sleep in the bed next to mine, and as the sound grew louder, I felt the basement begin to change, walls pulsing, like veins, floorboards softening beneath my feet like muscle, and suddenly I wasn't standing anymore. I was sinking, the room swallowing me as if it were alive and ravenous and ancient, and I clawed at the walls only to have my nails drag across something that screamed at the touch, 100 tiny voices wailing from inside the wood, whispering accusations in a language older than words, and just as I was pulled under, the darkness parted for a single image. Claire standing at the top of the stairs, holding the doll, her eyes completely black, mouth sewn shut with thread, and yet her voice filled the air. "You told me to jump, you said I wouldn't fall, you said I'd fly." My mind cracked open in that moment, the memory bleeding through at last night of the dare, how we played on the staircase when our mother passed out drunk downstairs, how I told Claire to stand on the banister and flap her arms like wings, how I promised her she wouldn't get hurt, how I laughed when she fell until the sound stopped. I never told anyone, not even myself, just buried it so deep I almost believed my own lie, but now it clawed back up, wearing her voice, her skin, her grief, and as the basement swallowed me whole, I felt her hand scold and small grip my wrists and pull me into something colder than death, and in the pitch black space where my body should have been, I opened my eyes to find myself inside the doll's head, watching through its cracked porcelain eyes, seeing myself from across the room where my real body stood motionless, glassy-eyed, mouth pulled into a puppet's smile. I screamed, but no one heard, no mouth to shape the sound, no lungs to force it out, just the endless silence of cotton stuffing and stitched lips. And as I watched my own hands reach down and pick me up the doll, the new me realized I wasn't in control anymore. Whatever lived in the doll had taken my place, had crawled into my skin like a suit, and now it was moving, talking, walking in my voice while I was trapped in fabric and thread and helpless terror. The last thing I saw before the Sada lights blinked out was my old body, me, stolen face, smiling into the bathroom mirror and whispering, "Now we're even." And then the glass shattered and the room went still. Time didn't pass inside the doll. It stretched, warped, melted into an endless loop of muffled silence and blurred vision, every second trapped inside a body that wasn't mine, unable to move, unable to scream, only able to watch as the thing wearing my skin walked freely through my life, smiling at my coworkers, laughing on the phone with my aunt, and even hugging my mother with fake warmth so perfect it made me sick. It knew everything about me, every habit, every phrase, every buried truth, and no one could tell the difference, not even my therapist, who said I was finally healing, not even Angela, who looked uneasy but said nothing when I came over to apologize for the other night. And as days turned into weeks, I realized the thing wasn't just pretending to be neat, was improving on me, fixing my mistakes, making friends I pushed away, cleaning up the mess I'd left behind, and it was doing it all while I rotted in silence, staring through its eyes from the shelf in my own apartment, surrounded by smiling pictures of Claire that I never put up, photos from birthdays we hadn't celebrated in years, all restored by the thing that had taken us both. Every night it would place me on the nightstand and whisper secrets to me in Claire's voice, promises of forever, family, of a second chance. And then it would turn off the lights and go to sleep in my bed, in my sheets, dreaming dreams I could never enter. I began to lose track of myself, me. Thoughts faded, my anger dulled, and I wondered if this was how Claire had felt before she died, if the doll had fed on her regret until she forgot how to be human at all. But one night something changed. The thing came home, blood on its sleeves, eyes wider than usual, trembling, and for the first time since it stole my body, it looked afraid. It placed me in the center of the floor and whispered, "She's coming, she's not done yet." And I knew then it hadn't been in control after all. It had been a vessel just like me, just like Claire, and now whatever puppeteer had been pulling the strings was ready for its final show. The apartment filled with the smell of dirt and roses and smoke, the smell from the grave I dug in Oster County, and suddenly Claire was standing in the door, Wariel, this time not a memory or a ghost, but whole, solid, with eyes like ash and a smile carved from grief, and behind her floated dozens of dolls, each with stitched mouths and broken limbs. Their heads twitching in perfect unison, Claire looked at the thing in my body and said, "You lied again." And then the dolls attacked. They moved like insects, flooding the room, covering the thing in my skin until it screamed, until it tore its face, until it ripped itself apart and left. My body empty, and in that final moment I felt the pull. I closed. My doll eyes braced for the end, but instead I woke up in my own skin, lying on the floor, surrounded by ashes. The apartment was quiet. The photos were gone. The mirrors shattered. Claire was gone, and the doll was sitting across from me with its legs folded and its eyes closed like it was sleeping. I should have burned it. I should have run. But instead, I picked it up, held it close, and whispered, "I'm sorry," and it whispered back, "Me too." No. I keep it in a glass box. I don't speak to it. I don't feed it stories. I don't sleep in the dark, but sometimes just before dawn I hear Claire humming from inside the glass, and I know we're still connected forever, stitched together by secrets if you've watched all the way. Until now, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who's ever kept something they should have let go. Let me know in the comments what part haunted you the most, and remember, some dolls aren't meant to be played with ever.